Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Quest and Dialog system in Godot 4 and GDScript. In this video, we will start by creating our quest system, and we will start by focusing on our quest, objectives, and rewards resource. We've spoken about what a resource is in the past, and we even created our dialog resource, which we instanced in the inspector panel for each NPC. Now, this time around, we will do the same thing for our quest, objectives, and rewards, but instead of creating these resources with the purpose of calling the data from a JSON file, we will create all of our quests, objectives, and rewards directly in the inspector panel. So let's open up our project and get started. In our file system manager, let's create a new folder called Quest in each of our resources, scenes, and scripts folder. This is where we will store our quest-related scenes, scripts, and objects. In our resources folder, let's create 3 new scripts called objectives, rewards, and quest. These will be resource objects, so they should all inherit from the resource type. Okay, so let's go over these scripts and what each of their purpose would be. Our quest script will help define our quest structure, which will include its objectives and rewards, and its logic for checking and updating quest states. To be able to create many objectives and rewards per quest, we needed separate objects to define those structures, hence the reason we created a separate resource script for our objectives and rewards. Now, our objective script will help us create the structure of our objectives for our quest, including their criteria and completion status. And then finally, our reward script will help us create the rewards for our quest, including the reward type and amount. Let's first create our rewards and objectives before we create our quest structure. We'll start with our objectives. For our objective structure, we will need to start off by giving each quest objective an ID and a description so that we can populate the UI with these values. Then we will have to say what type of objective this is. To start off, we will have 2 types of objectives. A talk to objective, which will require us to talk to a certain NPC, and a collection objective, which will require us to collect a certain amount of pickup items. So, to be able to create these objectives, we will need to also give our objective a target ID, which is the item or NPC that we need to talk to, and a target type, which is either a collection or talk to objective type. If our target type is talk to, we will need an additional component to return the objective dialog, which is what the NPC will say to us when we go and talk to them during the quest. If our target type is a collection objective type, then we'll need to store our required quantity and current quantity to keep track of how much of the required item we have to pick up. And then finally, we will need to create a boolean to keep track of the objective state. And that is our objective structure created. Now, for our reward, we will need to keep track of the reward type, for instance, coins or potions or armor, as well as the amount, which is how many coins, potions, or armor we will receive upon quest completion. To be able to reference the rewards and objectives resources in our quest resource, we will need to give each of them a class name. Okay, so with our rewards and objectives created, we can tie it all together in our quest resource. Our quest structure will require a quest ID, name, description, state, and an unlock ID, which is the ID of the dialog branch that will unlock this quest. We will also create an array of both of our objectives and rewards resources so that we can add multiple objectives and rewards to our single quest. We'll also need to create two functions in this resource to update our quest and objectives completion states. We'll call these functions later on in our quest manager to update and keep track of our quest state. Our first function will check if all of the objectives are complete, and if they are, we will return true, and if they aren't, we will return false. Our second function will update the state of our objective. If it is an objective that has a type of collection, then each time we pick up a required quest item, we will update the collected amount and mark it as either updated or completed. If it is an objective that has a type of talk to, we will simply just mark the objective as completed since we are just talking to an NPC. There is no required amount that we need to talk to this NPC. If all objectives are completed, we will update the quest state to also be completed. Okay, so as you can see, to complete the objective, we first loop over all of the objectives for the active quest. If the player is interacting with an item or an NPC, we will use the target type to see what objective they're trying to complete. If they're interacting with a quest item, the target type will be collection. So, if we have an objective with that type in this quest, we will update the quantity with the quantity passed from the item. If the collected quantity has reached the required quantity, then we'll mark the objective as complete. If our player is interacting with an NPC, meaning they're trying to talk to or complete a talk to objective, then we'll also mark the objective as complete. So if you want to extend your quest system later on to have more quest types, then you'll add another if statement. So say you want to have a quest type that is to slay an enemy, then you'll say elif objective.targetType equals slay enemy or kill enemy. And then you'll have to first check how many enemies have you killed versus how many enemies are you required to kill. And based on that, mark your objective as complete. So with our quest structure created, we can move on to our next component, which will allow us to actually use the structure. And this is our quest manager. But we'll stop this video here for now. In the next part, we'll get to adding that component. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.